everyone, my name is Leiasa and I'm a senior product manager at LawPay, here to show you our newest product, LawPay Pro. With this product, we're taking all those great features from LawPay and sort of adding on to it. And kind of the main features we're adding on are sort of time tracking, time and expense tracking, invoicing, and just some more trust accounting features there to kind of sort of round out your billing management.
Okay, that makes sense to kind of keep it in that pocket, keep it right around what LawPay does really well, and continue to just expand a little bit into more things that LawPay can do really well.
Yeah, definitely. We've been hearing a lot from our customers that a lot of them, are looking for some sort of like invoicing tool, or they want, help with creating invoices. And so we took that feedback and decided to create this product.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, let's take a look at the invoices and the features.
Great. Yeah, we can dive right in. And this is the home dashboard of LawPay Pro, and I can show you how easy it is to actually create an invoice.
Okay.
So as you might be familiar, in LawPay, we have this idea of a quick bill. And so a lot of people really like that feature, but wish that it had the ability to add line items. So we tried to take that feature, keep it really simple, like a quick bill as it was, but just add the ability to add line items, make it more like a real invoice.
Okay.
So that's what we have here. When you land on this screen, you're able to, select an existing contact that's in your system, or, if you needed to invoice someone who wasn't in the system yet, you can just click this button and add them while you're adding the invoice.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and do that. So let's say I was just adding a new client, I just maybe had a consultation with, and then I can choose to add a case at this point or not add a case. So you can invoice without a case, of course, if you needed to. But here, I'll just put this down. And then you can select the bank account you want this invoice payment to deposit into. So if you had multiple operating accounts, you'd be able to select which operating account you wanted to use. And then, of course, we have payment terms, and then the due date of the invoice. So like I mentioned, you have the ability to add line items here. And we have expense, time entry, and flat fee type line items. And so in this case, I'm just going to select a flat fee. Like I mentioned, we could pretend this is like for a consultation, right? This client isn't in my system yet, but just had a quick meeting with them. And let's say my rate is $100 for that consultation. And basically that's all you really have to do to create an invoice. Just a couple clicks there, and then you can go ahead and click save and move on.
Okay. And when I save that puts it in the system. That doesn't necessarily like send an email or anything like that yet.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So if we click save here, I can go ahead and show you the next screen. So like you mentioned, it doesn't send it when you save. It kind of just creates like this draft invoice for you. And then here you're able to get a preview of what that invoice is going to look like, and like what your client is going to see, right? So kind of a live PDF version of the invoice. So you'll have your firm information and firm logo here. You'll also have any contact information. And then, of course, your line items and totals, how much is owed. And then we include a QR code and also a payment link on the invoice. So when you do send this invoice to a client, a client is either able to scan the QR code or click the link. And that's going to take them to a payment page that is specific for this invoice. So whenever the contact pays to this payment page, it's automatically going to update that invoice to be paid.
Okay. And so this isn't like the payment link that would be sent. That's kind of a generic payment page. This is specific to that invoice. And with that, the things that we kind of have come to want from LawPay with the QR code that sends us directly to here, that link that sends us directly to here, and it's not that the large page that we might like put on our letterhead or something like that for payment.
Right, definitely. This kind of cuts out a step for you, right? Because let's say you invoice a client and then you use that link to have them go pay you. You have to later go back and reconcile, right? Like mark that invoice as paid, make sure you're tracking it. So this kind of takes out that step for you. It automatically will generate that link for you. So when the client does make a payment, it reconciles it for you. So just kind of taking out a step there.
Okay. Yeah. Saving time.
Yeah. And yeah, so you can see here, like the client can pay via credit card. Depending on like the payment options your firm has set up, they could pay with e-check as well. So both those options available for the client.
Okay.
Hopping back here, you're also able to send the invoice directly from this page. So if you click send invoice here, it's just going to pop open this modal. And you can see, since I added this contact right when we were creating the invoice, I didn't enter an email for them. So, if you happen to have a contact without an email, you'll be able to enter it in at this time. So you would just enter in like the email here. And then you're able to customize this message that sends to the client. And included in the email, there'll be this big pay now button, and we also attach the invoice as a PDF.
Okay. So lots of ways to see information, lots of ways to get paid, lots of ways to get to that put in your credit card and pay me little area.
Yeah, we know how critical it is for attorneys to get paid for the work they're doing. So we want to make sure we make it as easy for them as possible for their clients to pay them. Yeah, so just we can take a quick look real quick. So you can see this is kind of an example of what the email would look like. I didn't customize the message, but like I mentioned, you could customize it here. It will say the name of your law firm, please review your invoice, and you can easily pay online by clicking this button, which is going to take you to that payment link, this link that I showed you before. And then, of course, the PDF invoice is also attached there for the client.
Okay. And in that email, in that subject line where it says prod test, that's where it would say something like Zack Leiasa Legal. So my client would see my firm's name in that subject line, and then it would say no reply at LawPay.com, which, would give them a little bit of, would let them know that it's powered by LawPay and has LawPay security as well. But seeing my name in there means it came from me. So it should, they should recognize it.
Yeah, that's a great call out, Zach. This is obviously a test kind of demo environment since we're still in the beta phase.
Sure.
But yeah, it would say new invoice from your law firm here.
Okay, cool.
Looking back at this page, you obviously have the ability to download or print the invoice as well. And you can also here record a payment on behalf of the client. So clicking this button, you're again able to pay with a credit card or e-check. So maybe the client is in your office or you have them on the phone and they just want to pay right now. They can't find the link or whatever it is. You can go ahead and, enter in their information and make the payment on their behalf.
Okay. Because, my mother's going to get this invoice and she's going to call the firm with her credit card in hand, not pay it online, but still want to be able to pay it with her credit card. So that makes sense that, your associates can take that over the phone. And it looks like you've got the save this card for future payments. So you're working in that card vault functionality as well.
Yes, exactly. So, if you are an existing LawPay customer and you've been using it to process payments, any credit cards that you have saved in LawPay will show up here for you to use to charge your customers. Again, you have the e-check option as well. And then you also, kind of new in LawPay Pro 2, is the ability to collect an offline payment. So we know sometimes clients will pay with like a personal check, or maybe they pay in cash. you still want to track that, right, in your system. You still want to know this invoice has been paid. So we give you the option here, cash, check, whatever it is, to log that as an offline payment. So it will still, update the invoice in your system marked as paid.
Okay. Okay. So I can have LawPay be my source of truth for whether or not that invoice, which was generated in LawPay, has been paid one way or the other.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And then finally, we have from trust account. So obviously I just created this contact when we sent this invoice. So they don't have any trust account set up yet. But if they did, you would be able to pay this invoice with existing trust funds as well.
Okay.
And we can walk through that a little bit later too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. So that's, how easy it is to create an invoice in LawPay Pro. But there's a lot of other great features that I can show you as well.
Yeah.
So this next one is called Trust Request. So this is basically the ability to, request trust funds from your client, whether you're first taking on the case and need to collect some trust funds or replenish the trust. You could use this in either of those options.
Okay. If I'm taking on a family law case and I say, listen, it's going to take $3,000, retainer to get this started, I can send this link out, and that's going to get or I can send this trust request out, and that's going to get that trust account filled, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of see here this example. It basically sends out an email for you, asking the client to deposit the funds into their trust account. And then they have like a similar payment sort of thing that we saw before. Instead of now for the invoice, it's tied to this trust request, so that if they make the payment, this trust request will update as paid.
Okay. And that actually, it makes sense that the trust request be very separate from the invoice, because if I'm invoicing for all my potential retainers for potential new clients, we're not necessarily at a place where every one of them is going to continue to retain me. And so having those invoices just sitting out there, whereas the trust request, I can tell that, okay, that wasn't paid, and that's something totally different than just an invoice for work that was already done.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. We wanted to kind of like separate out those two, and keep them separate, just because of the, regulations between like trust and operating accounts as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's say that we're going to do $1,000. And then again, if you had multiple trust accounts, they would show here. So you could select which trust account you want to deposit into. And then LawPay Pro also has this trust by case feature. So if you happen to have a client that has multiple cases and you kind of want to keep those trust funds separate, like for the different cases, you can actually choose to have those funds allocated to a specific case. Or, if you don't really care about keeping track of them on the different cases, or you just have one case, you can also just choose to have it, allocate directly to the client and the client trust balance.
Okay. I could imagine that there are a lot of people out there that have those issues. Their current software doesn't do it that way, and they're having to bend over backward to make it work. Having one client with multiple different issues going on at the same time, and multiple different ways of funding those issues.
Yeah, definitely. And I know in some states too, it can kind of be like a compliance issue if you don't sort of keep them separated by case as well. So again, you can customize the email that gets sent with the trust request. And you can actually, in your settings, set this up. If you have a default message you want to send out every time with your trust request, you can set that so you don't have to keep editing it every time you send out one of these requests.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you just press send, and it will send, like you can kind of see the preview here, but a similar email to what we saw before, but instead of paying an invoice, you're just, depositing funds into the trust.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully that'll be more understandable to the client as well, instead of thinking, oh, I just got billed this. Well, no, I'm paying my retainer.
And then to see, those invoices or trust requests you've sent. Underneath the billing tab, we have all the invoices, kind of with a nice overview here to kind of see where you're at and the different statuses of your invoices.
Mm-hmm.
And then all your trust requests too will be under this tab, and you can see the status here of paid or overdue, unpaid or overdue.
Okay.
Perfect. So now that we've kind of sent a trust request to our contact, we can track some time.
Okay.
So we have this time tracking capability in LawPay Pro. Obviously, if you are invoicing and you bill by time, adding time entries is a key piece to that. So to add a time entry, you just can go ahead and select whatever case you want to add the time for. And then you're able to select which user. So we know sometimes attorneys might have their staff track time for them, or maybe a paralegal. So you're able to track time for other firm members.
Okay.
And then you can select an activity. So you can actually customize these for your firm. And, if one wasn't in the drop down, you could actually create a new activity by just clicking here while you're creating the time entry.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I'll select client meeting. And you can see it actually, when I did that, it auto-populated a description. So when you create these activities, you can set up a default description. So it makes it easier to track your time. And you, of course, can edit the description too to add more detail as well. And then here too, you can see you have the ability to mark this time entry as non-billable. Mm-hmm. So we know that sometimes you might want to track time just to see like what staff is doing, how they're spending their time, even if it's not billable for the client.
Right.
So that feature is there for you to use.
Okay. And then the description being input in there, kind of templated, means that data, that description is kind of sanitized. So I assume that information down the path here is going to be able to go onto a line item of the invoice, and that is going to kind of tell my client what happened. And I want that information to be, I don't want people to put in very different things each time I have a client meeting necessarily.
Yeah, definitely. This will appear on the invoice, and we have heard that from attorneys, like including a description can be really helpful because sometimes clients call in asking a lot about the bill, but if you have a description, it gives them more insight into what the charge is for, and they're less likely to kind of call in.
Oh yeah.
With questions. Yeah. And there's a little note right here too, letting you know that, the description will appear on the invoice too.
Okay.
And then you can obviously select your date, backtrack it if you need to, but it will default to today. And then you can see that it defaulted to $100. So my user right now has a default billing rate set up to $100. So since my user is selected here, it auto-populated that rate for me. Okay.
That's handy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just trying to streamline the time tracking process since we know it's tedious. And lawyers don't always like to do it, but you got to track your time to get paid. So
that's
trying to make it as seamless as possible.
Yeah, we don't want to track it. We don't want to bill, but we do want to make, we do want to live. We do want to be able to pay our rent or mortgage or things like that. So you have to do it.
Yeah. And then the last field here is just duration. So the number of hours. Mm-hmm. So we can just click save there. And then time entry has been created. So you can come here under billing and time entries. It's going to show you all of your open time entries. So anything that hasn't been invoiced, you of course can view past invoice ones or all of them as well. But yeah, that's how you create time entry. We also have the ability to add expenses as well. Okay. And these can be included on your invoice too. It's pretty similar to the time entry. You just select your case, and then activity. You can add a description, a cost, and then a quantity. And then you have the option to mark it billable or not. And then you can also attach a receipt as well.
Okay.
And then your expenses, of course, show here.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've kind of created some time entries and expenses, let's say, some time has gone by, you've been keeping track of that stuff over the month. And now it's kind of the end of the month when you bill your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to create an invoice and I select the contact I want to bill in the specific case, you can see when I selected that case, all of the expenses and time entries that I've been tracking, throughout the month auto-populate in the invoice for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, yeah, of course, from here, I'm able to make changes or edit any of them. I can also choose to not include them on the invoice if I don't want to for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also make it non-billable from here. So we know sometimes, attorneys want the line item to appear on the invoice so the client can see, hey,
Yep.
hey, I did this work for you, but I'm not going to charge you for it, that sort of thing. So they have the option to do that here.
That's one of the first things I learned from my father when I started practicing law. He was like, "No, don't just take it off the invoice. Give them a discount. Let
Yeah,
them know
make sure you
you
show
did
it.
it. Show them the discount. Show them what was done." So yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah, we've definitely heard it a lot from our customers. And speaking of discounts too, you can also do a dollar amount or percentage discount here as well
Mm-hmm.
on the invoice, if, if you choose to.
Okay.
And then, of course, you could also add more time entries or expenses during this process. But yeah, and then you just go ahead and click save. And that's going to, of course, create the invoice. We've kind of already seen this. And in this scenario, like I mentioned, let's say we have the contact on the phone, maybe. So I go to pay for them. And you can see here, this is an example of, if I already had the card on file for this
Mm-hmm.
client. So I can
Okay.
choose to select that payment method. And like you said, this is kind of pulling from, my LawPay account from existing transactions I've had with this client.
Mm-hmm.
So I would see the different cards here. You can also choose to use a different card if you wanted, but you can select that there and then just click make a payment and confirm. And then you can see payment was successful and it emails a receipt automatically to the client for you. You can also print it out too if you choose.
Okay.
And then that's going to update your invoice to paid. And then we also have this invoice history here too. So you can see kind of like when the invoice was created, if it was sent, that would show up here as well. And then also like payment information. So you can see here it shows that like I, the attorney, paid on behalf of the client since I was paying, in the LawPay product.
Okay. That's helpful, I think. Because a lot of times you just want to track down what happened with something. Where are we missing something a lot of times, and just knowing what specific actions happen is extremely helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of that too, underneath a specific contact, so in the contact section, if you click to see a contact, we have this activity tab. And this is kind of like a running audit of sort of everything going on with the client. So you can see like when you sent them a deposit request, when you accepted funds, emailed an invoice,
Mm.
and payments as well made by the client.
This all seems like natural extensions of what LawPay can do. All of this seems very like, oh, yeah, okay. It's yeah. This isn't necessarily, it doesn't appear to be getting into, like split origination tracking or something like that, but this is all stuff that I'm sure people as they were using LawPay were like, oh man, it'd be great if, just uh, um wonderful additions, and expansion of what LawPay does well already.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely what we were looking to do, is just kind of, like I mentioned, help round out the billing sort of processes that need to be done. Since we, already had the payments, it was super easy to kind of add on these features, and just make it easier for our customers to focus on what they do best, I guess, actually working on cases instead of worrying about, billing and Excel sheets and trying to create the invoices and all of that stuff.
And trying to compile it in 6 different places and figure out where
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, where you.
Yeah, that's a big one we hear. I think having it all in one place, like all the invoices and payments just in one place, makes it a lot easier to track and, look back out for accounting purposes, and also less like logins too as well.
Yes, and I think that's A, important, and B, I think attorneys are looking for that now, and I think companies like LawPay, FinaPay, MyCase are trying to embed these things and really bring uh, integrations deeper into the platform. So I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And speaking of LawPay too, we actually have an easy way for you to kind of go back to sort of like that traditional view of LawPay too.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you need to, for any reason, come back here, it's pretty easy to navigate. And then, of course, you can always go back to LawPay Pro with this button down here.
Okay.
Yeah, so same login, and you get to access both if you ever needed to. But we're basically all the functionality from LawPay we're putting in LawPay Pro. So, if you do decide to purchase LawPay Pro, you wouldn't really need to go back to that kind of older version of LawPay.
Okay. I could see where it might be comforting right off the bat.
Right.
No, okay, I know where to get to this stuff, but yeah, having all the functionality in this one place is probably better off on the down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the payments will sync between, or they would show up in both places since it's just LawPay, using LawPay payments.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Jumping back to the contacts, I can show you just a little bit more of what we have here. We are kind of adding some basic contact or client tracking here for our customers. Obviously, if you're going to be billing them, it makes sense to store some contact information.
Right.
Really simple case tracking as well. So the ability to add cases and link them to your clients. We already covered the activity tab. Sorry, go ahead.
It just that makes sense, because if you're gonna be able to separate the trust out by case, then you're naturally going to have to at the very least, track the name of the case.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of times too, right, like time tracking makes sense to go to a case, sometimes more so than a client.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we kind of just have like a simple notes section where you can take notes on the client. And then of course we have like a billing tab for each individual client. So you can kind of see, like all the billing that's going on related to this specific client. So we have kind of like a trust history here. So this is going to show all the movement in and out of the trust account for you for this particular client. And then, of course, we have those trust requests you sent, invoices, and then the ability to set up those trust allocations. So this lists out, all of the cases you have, because these are kind of like the different areas you can allocate the trust to. And then you're actually able to set up minimum trust balances here. So helps you keep track, if a trust is getting too low, you can request more funds or get them to replenish the trust.
Yeah, I always expect LawPay to have good kind of trust features in that sense.
Yeah, definitely one of our biggest thing we hear from our customers is just how we help, with the trust compliance and having like those separate payment links for trust versus operating account.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then finally, we have scheduled payments. So this is, that today we have scheduled payments in LawPay. So just kind of that feature here in LawPay Pro for you. You can see, the automatic payments you have set up, and can set that up here for your different contacts.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. So y'all are bringing over the even kind of the newer features from LawPay into this and making it more robust than that.
Just a quick look, payments, we have like a running list of all your transactions,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously useful to kind of see everything, and you can filter by the different bank accounts.
Right. Right. Okay.
And then you're also able to collect a payment from this screen as well as the dashboard. So here, this is kind of similar to what I mentioned before. If you need to like collect a payment on behalf of the client, maybe they're in the office or on the phone, you can just go and select your contact. And then once you do that, it's going to show you, any open or unpaid invoices or trust
Mm-hmm.
requests you have for this contact. So you can select one of those to pay. Or you can choose to just deposit directly into the trust account.
Okay.
So some different options there on collecting your payments. And then again, this familiar screen. So when you collect the payment, you'll have the online, offline options.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, like I mentioned too, if you have trust funds, you can also do from the trust account. But yeah, you can see here. So
Yep.
this invoice hasn't been paid. So if I wanted to do from trust, I could select my contact and that trust account, and then, select the funds, have 11,000 there. So can easily
Mm-hmm.
pay this invoice in full, and can add me notes. And then you're able to just make the payment from the trust.
Okay. I mean, easy enough, and easy enough to kind of keep your head wrapped around. When you get into different invoices, different trust requests, different trust accounts for each for the same client, it can get confusing. But it looks like that's a pretty good user friendly interface for that.
Yeah, we definitely tried to make everything as like simple as possible. We did a lot of user testing to make sure the flows made sense to different attorneys, different law firms. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Next up, we can take a look at reports.
Okay.
So sort of building on top of what LawPay already offers today, we're going to provide some more reports, obviously, like an aging invoice report. So you can kind of see the ones that are overdue, how long they've been overdue, and what sort of needs to be looked at and addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have the accounts receivable, monthly summary, and your transactions. We also have like trust account summaries now too, and activity, so you can kind of see the different contacts, sort of their trust balances.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also added a productivity report. So you can run this report for different users in your firm to kind of see, what they've been billing, flat fees, their time entries and expenses for a certain amount of time, maybe the month or something like that.
Okay, and that makes sense if you're adding time tracking into here. Why not be able to do time reporting?
Yeah, exactly. So those are our reports. And then I think we didn't really get to talk about the dashboard yet. And so I kind of wanted to walk through this real quick.
Yeah.
We tried here to kind of give you sort of an overview into your firm of kind of how things are doing. So we have this invoices chart, like letting you know, how much total is overdue and
Mm-hmm.
the amount of invoices you have overdue. And these charts are actually, you can interact with them. So if you click on it, it's actually going to open this sort of side drawer, and it's going to show you all of the overdue ones. So you can go in and, resend them, or maybe give that contact a call to follow up on that invoice and try to get those paid.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Same here, kind of from the existing LawPay today, we have your total payments collected, over 30 days or 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the transaction types. So right now, I only have credit card or offline cash, but if you're doing ACH or other payment types, those would show up here as well.
Okay.
And then finally, we have this timesheet calendar. And a lot of our customers actually, our beta customers, have really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you an overview of sort of the time you've tracked throughout the week. And you can also do month. And you can actually set up a goal per day. So, if you want to set whatever the amount of hours you needed to track per day, you can set
Mm-hmm.
that up here. And then it turns green when you meet your goal. And then if you haven't yet, it will still be blue. So
Okay.
a nice like visual of, sort of the hours you tracked for the week. So you can kind of see if you've missed some and need to go back and take a look at that day, see what you missed.
Yeah, it might help you go, whoa, on Monday, I know I did a ton of stuff. I need to go look.
Yeah,
I need to go track my time. I need to go enter all that information in. Yeah.
definitely. And these two as well, you can click on them and you can see the time entries you have for that day,
Okay.
that they're open, and you can edit them from here and also add more time entries as well.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Perfect. Well, I think that concludes my walkthrough of LawPay Pro.
This is a really nice deep dive into what LawPay Pro is, or I guess is kind of gonna be in the next little bit because it's still in beta, but people can get on an early access wait list. We'll have the link to that in the show notes here. They can also go to lawpay.com and get demos and tons more information. There's obviously a lot more to LawPay than just what we've gone over here. There are all the other features that are in LawPay kind of underneath LawPay Pro. So thank you again for being with me and for showing me around.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for your time, Zach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We'll see you next time.